Have you ever wondered if a physical ailment was caused by stress? Stay tuned to learn how you can figure it out. Hi everybody, I'm Sue Allen Clayton. Welcome to my channel where we're learning how to read tarot one card at a time. In today's reading, we'll be using a 5-card spread to determine whether a man's stomach was going to heal. I will be using the Radiant Rider-Waite Tarot, and there's a link below. This question was posted anonymously online. The question was, is my stomach going to heal? I'm not sure if my problems are caused by stress or a bug. For simplicity's sake, I'm going to assume that the querent is a man. He didn't give any other information, so I have no idea what symptoms he's experiencing or how long this has been going on. The querent pulled 5 cards. He did not mention using a spread, however, I will be using a 5-card spread to get to the root of his problem. Card number 1 looks at the current state of the querent's stomach. He drew the 9 of Cups. Card number 2 looks at whether his stomach problem was stress-related. The querent drew the Knight of Cups. Card number 3 looks at whether his stomach problems were caused by a bug. The querent drew Judgment. Card number 4 looks at the immediate actions that the querent can take to heal his stomach. He drew the 8 of Swords. Card number 5 looks at some long-term guidance for his recovery. The querent drew the Page of Wands. Let's start with my first impressions. The first thing I want to say is that I'm never comfortable doing medical readings to diagnose problems. I would advise the querent to go to the doctor. If he did have a diagnosis and wanted a tarot reading for some insight into the cause or what he could do to help his healing, that's a different story. However, we're doing this reading for instructional purposes, so let's see what we can figure out. I'll be honest that nothing much came to me. There are cups or water in the first 4 cards. That makes me think that the cause is either emotional or he picked up some kind of bug that lives in the water. The first card shows a very smug man, and I think that can indicate that the querent's stomach feels very full or bloated. The swords might indicate a stabbing pain, and the wands could indicate feeling like his stomach is on fire. The Judgment card could indicate that stomach issues are waking him up at night. Let's look at each card individually and see what I can figure out. Card number 1 looks at the current state of the querent's stomach. He drew the 9 of Cups. This is the wish card and signifies getting everything you want. I think that this could mean that the querent overindulged and ate or drank too much. Since we see cups, my guess is that he likely drank too much alcohol. It could also mean that he drank contaminated water. I think his stomach is feeling very full or bloated. Cups are also about emotions, so I think that the state of his stomach can also have emotional roots. There is a strong relationship between our brain and our guts, to the point that our stomach is often referred to as our second brain. It's very common for people to get stomach aches when they are nervous or stressed, or to have other issues that require frequent trips to the bathroom that I'm not going to describe in detail. Overall, I think that the querent's stomach is bloated. There is both a physical cause from drinking either alcohol or contaminated water, and also a stress component that is making things worse. Card number 2 looks at whether his stomach problem is stress-related. The querent drew the Knight of Cups. The Knight of Cups is a very sensitive, nurturing person. He is someone who spends a lot of time looking inward. His goal is to be calm and happy. He buys self-improvement books and is constantly striving to be a better person. He's in touch with his spirituality and dislikes conflict. This person makes decisions based on their heart, intuition, and gut feelings. These people are often psychic. This tells me that the querent is a very sensitive, intuitive person who dislikes conflict. He is also a person who is focused on bettering himself, so he doesn't understand people who are happy with the status quo and not looking to improve their lives. In my experience, people who are very sensitive tend to have stomach problems because, as I said in the previous card, there is a big link between what happens in your brain and what happens in your gut. I know this is true for me, and these emotions can lead to unpleasant gastrointestinal side effects. The Knight of Cups is the knight in shining armor. He is someone who likes to rescue people, whether or not they want to be rescued. So I'm guessing that the querent's stress is related to a relationship where a friend or loved one is not making good decisions, but doesn't want help. For instance, they're abusing drugs and don't want to go to rehab, or they have a medical issue that needs to be treated, but they've decided to ignore the problem. Something like that. So I definitely think that this person's stomach problems are stress-related. It's also possible that the over-drinking in the previous card was a way to numb what is happening in his personal life. Card number 3 looks at whether his stomach problems are caused by a bug. The querent drew Judgment. Given the surrounding cards, I don't think that the stomach problems are caused by a bug. I think they're caused by stress. The Judgment card is a wake-up call. The querent is at a crossroads and needs to make some life-changing decisions. And I think the message is that the querent needs to learn how to deal with the stress in his life, specifically the person who he's trying to help and is refusing it. I have a friend who's gone through this with a family member who's addicted to drugs. They have a large extended family and everybody has taken their turn trying to help her brother-in-law find a job, housing, and other services. He has lived with many of them, all of whom have small children, but it's become too dangerous for their families when he's using drugs. They've paid for apartments and he's used the rent money for drugs, and then they found him sleeping on the street. They've called in favors to get him jobs, but he doesn't show up. It's been a very stressful situation, and finally they had to accept that there was nothing more they could do. I feel like the querent is in a similar situation. It's time to stop fighting and trust Archangel Gabriel to keep the person safe. Until that happens, his stomach problems will continue. Card number 4 looks at immediate actions that the querent can take to heal his stomach. He drew the 8 of Swords. Swords are about thoughts, and here we see a person imprisoned by her thoughts. To make it worse, she's bound and blindfolded and standing in a swamp. This card tells me that the querent is feeling trapped, stuck, or powerless. Think of each sword as a thought about the stress that is created by the person he's trying to help. Some of these thoughts might be, I'm not doing enough. Maybe we should give him a second chance. Or, he's going to die and it will be my fault. What is interesting about this card is it tells us that the powerlessness is created in our minds and that we can also get free if we choose to. Look at the restraints. They are very loose and the woman could get free if she wanted to. The same thing is true with the swords. Although it looks like they are encircling her, there's actually a large area in front that she could walk through and escape. This tells me that the querent's thoughts are at the root of his stomach problems, and although it will be difficult, these problems will resolve if he's able to change his mindset. Perhaps he could tell himself something like, I am not responsible for her medical decisions, or I can love him without enabling his addictive behavior. Once again, Pam Richards, in her book Understanding Tarot, has pointed out that the swords are shown in groups. In the forefront at the left, we have a grouping of 1. The single sword shows us that she has the reality and truth of the ace in front of her. She's standing between a group of 2 and a group of 5. This means that she's standing between failure, as shown by the 5s, and is avoiding making a decision, as shown by the 2s. I think this is the crux of the stomach problems. The querent is seeing the truth. He feels like a failure for not being able to help or fix his loved one. And he doesn't want to make a decision to let them make their own choices. The woman on the card is standing on uneven land and what looks to be a combination of water and mud. This may indicate low tide, so she would theoretically be in danger as the tide rises. The lack of water can indicate that she doesn't have access to her emotions. The uneven land shows that she's unsure of her footings. This tells me that the querent needs to focus on his emotions and not his thoughts. He also needs to get grounded. This is a time to stop being consumed with helping his loved one and instead to focus on self-compassion to protect his emotional and physical health. In summary, the querent needs to work on his thoughts in order to heal his stomach. He's in a place of blaming himself for not doing enough. He also needs to get in touch with his feelings and focus on taking care of himself instead of spending all of his time worrying about his loved one, whose actions he cannot control. You've made it this far in the video, and I wanted to stop and ask for a favor if you're not already a subscriber, and that is to please hit the subscribe button. It's free for you, and it will also help me to grow this channel. Plus, it means that you won't miss anything. Thanks so much, and if you're already a subscriber, I truly appreciate your ongoing support. Now let's get back to the video. Card number 5 looks at some long-term guidance for recovery. The querent drew the Page of Wands. Pages are the students of the deck, and wands are connected to the element of fire. The Page of Wands can be a message that it's time for the querent to take action and to learn something new in his life. This can be something that creates joy. I remember the joy I experienced when I started quilting in my 50s after not sewing for more than 30 years. Another message is that the querent needs to learn to stand up for himself after years of being treated like a doormat. The Page of Wands can mean that it's time for the querent to get in touch with his inner child and the adventurous spirit of his youth. He needs to reconnect with the curiosity of his childhood and the hopes, dreams, and potential that he had for his future. Think of what it's like when you ask a child what they want to be when they grow up, and they tell you they want to be an astronaut, a policeman, a famous actor, a circus clown, and a professional race car driver, and they don't see any problem with that. We get so practical as we become adults. Chances are that it's too late for the querent to become an astronaut, but he can buy a telescope and learn astronomy, or sign up for NASA's Adult Space Academy, which is a weekend camp where you learn how to be an astronaut, or meet up with people who have a similar interest at a local science museum. Notice how focused the page is on his wand. He's not thinking of anyone or anything else, or even the stark landscape. I think that the querent has lost himself because he's been so focused on helping his loved one. In order for his stomach to get better, he needs to take his energy and focus on himself, his dreams, and actions that he can take to rebuild his life. The querent also needs to embody the Page of Wands' childlike sense of exploration and develop a beginner's mindset approach to healing his stomach. What actions could he take to make his stomach better beyond pursuing childhood goals? Are there foods that are lacking in his diet, or is he eating something that's aggravating his stomach? Could he benefit from seeing a nutritionist or a GI specialist or a therapist? Are there actions he could take to manage his stress, such as journaling or learning yoga? When he has thoughts about not being able to help his loved one, what can he do to keep these from trashing his stomach? The Page of Wands is facing toward the future. His long-term guidance toward healing his stomach is that he needs to focus on his future and focus his energy on himself, his health, and his opportunities. I think that he'll be successful. So let's summarize. This reading answered the question about whether a man's stomach was going to heal. He was unsure if his problems were caused by a bug or stress. We determined that his prime cause was stress, and that if he made some changes, his outlook for healing was excellent. Card number 1, the Nine of Cups, looked at the current state of the querent's stomach. I think that his stomach was bloated, and it was caused by a combination of stress and something he drank. Card number 2, the Knight of Cups, looked at whether his stomach problem was stress-related. I definitely think that stress was the cause. I think that the querent is a very sensitive person whose stress is related to a loved one not making good decisions and refusing to let the querent help. Card number 3, Judgment, looked at whether the querent's stomach problems were caused by a bug, and I don't think they were. I think that it's stress and that this message is a wake-up call that the querent needs to stop fighting the situation and accept that he's done everything he can. Card number 4, the Eight of Swords, looks at immediate actions that the querent can take to heal his stomach. This card tells us that the querent is feeling powerless. He needs to stop blaming himself and change his thoughts to something more empowering. He also needs to get in touch with his feelings and focus on taking care of himself. Card number 5, the Page of Wands, looks at some long-term guidance for recovery. To be successful, the querent needs to focus on himself and his future. This includes reconnecting with childhood interests and taking actions to make these a part of his life. He also needs to channel a student's inquisitiveness and look for changes that could improve his stomach, such as changing his diet or learning how to manage his stress. I hope that this video will help you with your tarot readings. Please leave a comment if you'd like to share what you've learned. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.